Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 211th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. Today in the KMF Collective Studio, I have with me former professional tennis player Melanie Oudin. How are you doing, Melanie?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
Well, I am too, Melanie. And so just to kind of get to know you a little bit, I wonder, where did you grow up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
I grew up in Marietta, Georgia, and my grandma actually started my twin sister and I in tennis. We started when we were 7, and we started at our neighborhood courts. Just my grandma would bring a basket of balls, and she'd just feed us some, and we'd play a little bit of Australian doubles, 2 against 1. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I just really enjoyed it. Meanwhile, I played soccer at the same time too, but then realized how much I love tennis. So had to give up soccer and went with tennis full time.
Yeah. I love that you kind of, it was fostered by your grandma and then you and your twin sister getting to play together. And so, Melanie, I mean, playing at the same time too with soccer, but then you said ultimately you realized tennis was kind of where your heart lied. You loved that sport. So what was it about tennis initially that really sparked that love and that joy and that passion that made you decide, I want to go all in with this sport?
You know, it's funny. I've always loved the individual sport. I really loved that everything was on me. And whether I won or lost, like I felt like I gave everything I had, or I didn't do enough or whatever. I really felt like I just loved the individual sport type. I did enjoy playing doubles, but I think that competitor in me, like for some reason, I think that's what I loved so much about tennis. And then obviously just kind of falling in love with playing the sport. I mean, it was just a different feeling than any other sport that I had played.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes sense. It's kind of where you're driven by. So having that competitive nature internally. And so having that being relying on you, like you said, you loved that aspect of it. And so
Exactly.
That kind of drove that. So then, Melanie, so coming up, obviously you kind of took to it at a young age, and then coming up into high school and then looking to college, did you have aspirations to play at that next level, or did you think that your career would end at high school age? What were you kind of looking towards?
So I had always wanted to go pro since I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
I had watched Venus and Serena play on TV at Wimbledon, and I told my mom that I was going to be there one day. Like, I wanted to play there like they were, and obviously I had no idea what it really took to get to that level, but that was my goal, and I did everything I could to get there. And then obviously I turned pro when I was 16, so while I was actually homeschooled instead of going to regular high school, and then obviously that was when I guess I would have been a sophomore in high school, so I really didn't even get to interested in college tennis or any kind of the recruiting process because I had already turned pro, and I think I voiced that I was more interested in pro tennis before going the college route or anything.
Wow. So at such a young age, at 16, turning pro, how did that happen for you? How did you set yourself up on that path to turn pro by the time you were 16 years old?
So my coach actually made a deal with me that I had to have a certain ranking by the time I was supposed to go to college, because he wanted it to be realistic. He wanted me to be able to make a living, and I'm very appreciative of that, because I feel like, unfortunately, like there are a lot of players that turn pro and then something happens or you don't quite get there, and then you're not able to make a living and you have forgone college education, and then it's like, what do you do now? So
yeah.
For me, I had the ranking when I was 16, and that's really what I wanted. I mean, I did everything I possibly could to get there. I was doing all the right things. as far as nutrition, as far as waking up at 5:30 in the morning to run and not going to parties and dances and staying out late with friends and having to go to bed early because of training, and just kind of doing everything I could to reach that goal. And then I was lucky enough to be able to make a living and was able to support myself, and ended up having a pretty good career. Not as good as I would have wanted, but I still am very happy about it.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's incredible that you were granted that chance at such a young age and then you took it. You had, like you said, you had a coach in place, you had things in place that allowed that opportunity to really flourish. And so, Melanie, for you at 16, though, I mean, like you said, waking up early, not going to school dances, making all those sacrifices, was there ever a time where you doubted what you were doing or you thought, man, this is just so tough? I mean, navigating that transition of being a kid essentially into all of a sudden then being a professional tennis player and what all goes into it, like you said, that schedule and that rigorous training that you were following. So how challenging was that for you, or was it, or if it was?
It was definitely hard. Yeah. Yes, because I had a twin sister, like I said, her name's Catherine. And so she went to normal high school, she went to prom, she went to, did all of the normal stuff that you would do as a kid, and I was missing out a lot. By the time I was 16, I was traveling all over the world. My schedule, I was pretty much on tour full time, so I was traveling 30 weeks out of the year. When I was home, I was still having to train, or I was training somewhere else where my coach was. It was a lot. It was basically like I started my full-time job at 16 when most people start, obviously, like, after college. So it was definitely some sacrifices, but then my coach used to tell me, how do you want to be playing on Arthur Ashe Stadium at the US Open, or do you want to go to prom? And for me, all day long it was be the US Open. I mean, I know I really turned pro at 16, but I had already been putting in all this work since I was probably like 10. I started homeschooling when I was 12, and that was really where I saw a huge improvement in my game. I was really dedicating like pretty much all my time to becoming a pro tennis player. So, there was a lot of work that was put in before that a lot of people, obviously, you don't see from when someone makes it on TV at the US Open. They don't see what happened before. They don't really see how you got there. And I think that's how I made it. I mean, all those hours of training and waking up so early, eating the right foods, going to bed early, like that is what I think helped me get there.
Right. It's so easy to look at someone's success and, the overnight success, right? So you look at like, man, she had such an incredible career. She turned pro at 16 years old. But the idea is that you'd been working on it your entire life up until that point. So it wasn't like just one bout of luck got you there. It was that incredible hard work and discipline and things that you had developed in your life at such a young age in order to make that dream a reality. And so you're right. I mean, having to set those in place. So it's natural that you would see, especially having a twin sister, someone your own age going through a quote normal high school life, and then you going on this incredible route of pursuing becoming a professional tennis player, having those two disparate things happening at the same time, and then still choosing to go down that route. It's just that the mental strength it must have took to be able to do that. I mean, I love what you said. Like your coach said, do you want to be playing at the US Open or do you want to go to prom? I mean, that just solidifies that.
Yeah, no, you're so right. The mentality was probably the biggest thing. And people say what sets people apart from going to college or going pro, or what sets apart, someone that's number one in the world or someone that's 500 in the world, and honestly, a big part, I think, is the mentality, I mean, it's such a big part. Like, that's why I think a lot of players that I played with in the juniors, they wanted to go pro, but they didn't make it, and it's just something that I think partly you're born with, I think, having a strong mentality, and partly you develop over time with like your work ethic and your focus and your dedication to the sport, I think is obviously very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's really that's such a good point. And so then, Melanie, for you, so turning pro at 16 and then going all in with this tennis dream. So what happened next? I mean, how did your professional career begin to unfold at that age?
So I had only turned pro at 16, and then the next year I had made the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open, which was pretty crazy because all throughout my career, even in the juniors, from I guess 10 to maybe 16, I had slowly taken steps forward and gone up the rankings kind of step by step. There were no like huge jumps anywhere, and I felt like all of a sudden I was only playing my first main draw U.S. Open that I gotten in on my own, and I was top 100, which obviously was good enough to get in on my own, but like I never made it past. Actually, I got to the Wimbledon fourth round earlier that year, which was kind of a random thing because I came through qualifying, so I wasn't even top 100 yet. So like that year, I just made these huge like leaps and bounds forward, and making the quarterfinal of the U.S. Open, and then all of a sudden I'm ranked 30 in the world.
Wow.
And it was just like the last year I just turned pro,
Right.
just stopped playing juniors the year before. So that was definitely a big adjustment and a big change. And I felt like I need some like getting used to it. It was just like a whole different world. Like everyone was so good. Like everyone top 50 is just so strong. I mean, a lot of them were a lot older than I had played against, obviously in the juniors. They were just more experienced. So it was a big adjustment, just the lifestyle too, playing all these much bigger tournaments and traveling probably even more than I was before, definitely going overseas more, like to Asia and just kind of all over the place, which I had tried to stay more Europe or North America if I could.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. It was a totally different experience for me, and that happened like out of nowhere.
Yeah. And I mean, how did, like, you spoke to how significant that mental shift was and how being disciplined and mentally tough was. So how did you navigate then that whole journey? I mean, changing your lifestyle. And then I imagine too, I mean, being 16 years old, then 17, and then being kind of just thrust into this world. And then all of a sudden too, playing with people you idolized and looked up to. So all of these different things happening at the same time. How did you navigate that mentally?
It was really hard. My results struggled a bit after that. And I felt like there was just so much pressure. Like before, I had just been kind of under the radar, I guess, a little bit, especially behind Serena and Venus for sure, who were dominating. And then all of a sudden, after I did really well, people would say, oh, like Melanie's going to be the next best American. And there was so much pressure for me to win like every single match that I played, like every tournament that I played. And I'm like, that's so unrealistic. Like I hadn't been playing these huge tournaments before. Now I am because of my ranking, but I wasn't quite, I feel like, ready for that like huge jump. And like, it wasn't even just that, it was the spotlight also, like I said, there weren't many Americans coming up besides obviously Serena and Venus, who were already up there and on top. But for a young American coming up, there weren't many. So therefore, most of the attention was brought on me. And I just wasn't used to that. I mean, I never cared about being in the spotlight. Of course, it was very nice. I mean, I enjoyed doing all the things I got to do and meeting all the people I got to meet. But Right. It was always about the tennis for me. It was never about the sponsorships or the photo shoots or the commercials or the talk shows I got to go on. It was always the tennis.
Yeah. And I mean, that's got to be huge. Like you said, it's always about the tennis and never about that spotlight, never about all the stuff that came with it. But now all of a sudden you were in this world where they were
Right.
kind of synonymous, where you were playing the tennis, but it came with all of these different aspects. And so then for you, Melanie, going into that and 16, 17 years old, looking forward, then how did it start to kind of shift your professional career? How much further down the path did you go? What ultimately ended up happening with your career?
It was difficult, and besides just the spotlight, everyone wanted to know everything about my family, my personal life, and that was a lot, and there's always family drama, and that was all of a sudden in the public, and everyone wanted to ask questions about it and wanted to know everything about me, and that was something that I really didn't want to happen. So that took a toll on me too. And then after I finally had started to like go under the radar again, I finally took some time. I had gotten a new coach. Jack Sock and I did win the U.S. Open mixed doubles in 2011, which was obviously a great thing. But finally got back on track with singles in 2012 and was back in the top 100 again. Like everything was kind of coming back. I felt like I had a good kind of break, and then all of a sudden I got injured. And I had never had like hardly any injuries in the juniors. I was very lucky. I really took care of myself. And then all of a sudden I got some random injuries where it was kind of out of my control. This like rare muscle condition, and that is really from, I guess, overtraining. But it's very rare. It's very uncommon with tennis. And just kind of things that were very out of my control. And it was such a bummer because I was really back on track again and looking to keep moving up the rankings. But when you have an injury like that, and obviously everyone is so strong at the highest level, you know, when you're out for 4 months, 5 months, which I was, it takes a long time to really get back to compete with those top players. So, it was very difficult to come back, and then unfortunately I felt like I just never was the same. I kept getting injuries every year. There was something, you know, and I'd be out for a span of 3 months or so, and then trying to come back again. It was the same kind of thing over and over. Like you push yourself like mentally and physically, and then an injury happens again, and then you're just like, I'm doing all of this work, you know, for what? You know, I mean, I keep getting injured, and to play at that level, like I said, you have to be 100%. I mean, you know, it's just everyone is so good that if you're really not, then you have it's very hard. And there's a small chance that you're going to be able to do well to compete at that level.
Yeah, and that, I mean, I can't imagine how hard that was, and going through that. And so then after that, after sustaining those injuries and kind of having it recurring and come back, and not reaching that level that you wanted to get back to, did it ultimately, were those injuries what ultimately brought your professional career to a close?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So 2017 is when I actually like officially retired. And it just was a lot, you know. I mean, like I said, the mental and physical toll that it took trying to come back over and over. Yeah. And I had probably done it 4 or 5 times, and I just, like I said, my body was just never the same. I always felt like I couldn't push myself to the limit anymore. And I had a couple heart surgeries also, which obviously was a lot different than a regular injury, right? Because it like messes with your mind a lot. I mean, you know, it's not just ankle injury or a shoulder injury, it's your heart, right? So it was really difficult to come back after those, just because of, you know, not knowing if I was better or not, and things like that. So unfortunately, yes, I retired in 2017, and I felt like it was the right decision. I almost was relieved after, because of the fact that I think the toll that it just took on me, you know, over the last few years of trying to come back. So it made me feel good that I knew it was the right decision, and I just had to figure out kind of what was next for me, what was my new chapter.
Yeah. And so as you came up on that, Melanie, I mean, with all of the struggles that you came up against physically, mentally, emotionally, I mean, with everything that was going on, and then in 2017, making that decision, okay, and then feeling, like you said, kind of at peace with it because of all of the struggles that you had gone through. So then looking forward, navigating that transition in 2017 from no longer being a pro tennis player into that next phase of your life, how did you navigate that then? Did you have any idea of what you would do next, what path you would want to walk down?
Yeah, it was really hard. I had actually seen myself doing a lot of commentating after I finished playing. That was kind of what I wanted to do. But then I never, you know, I didn't know how it would feel, obviously, after retiring, because that's all I had known, right? My whole life I had been a tennis player, and then all of a sudden I'm not anymore. So what am I? I definitely struggled a little bit with, like, an identity crisis just because that's what I knew, that's what I did. And I didn't know what I was now. So that was definitely difficult. So I'm glad I took a year and really did a bunch of different things. I did some coaching. I did a bunch of charity events and exhibitions and coaching clinics and doing some commentating and interviewing, kind of all over the place, trying to figure out what I really enjoyed and what I really wanted to do. And I decided on coaching. I never really thought that I would end up coaching, but I had never done it before, so I didn't really know. And after doing the commentating and interviewing, I think I realized that the coaching is more me. It's just I love being on court. I love playing still. I love sharing all the knowledge and expertise that I have now from all the years of playing and working with a bunch of great coaches and obviously playing at a high level. I think it's definitely what I'm meant to be doing. And so last year, January last year was really when I decided to go coaching full time. And I've been really, really happy with it. It's been definitely the right decision, and it's definitely what I think I should be doing. And it's very cool to work with young kids and, young girls like me and help them reach their goals.
I love that. So being able to help that next generation and help guide them through the experiences that you yourself have had. So really drawing on those. And I love that. I mean, really, like you said, you didn't know what it was going to be like in that transition. And so did you want to really still be involved in the world of tennis? How hard was it going to be involved as a coach or a commentator? And so then, Melanie, for you, you said you know now that coaching really is something that you were meant to do. And so going all in last year, going full time. But in the beginning, when you thought commentating might be a path you would go down, what made you realize that wasn't the right path and that coaching was?
Well, I really loved the interviewing, and I think the interviewing was more me because I felt like it was having a conversation with someone and it was asking questions that I would want to know from some of the players, and it was very comfortable and easy for the players too because I knew most of them. So doing a lot of that was very fun for me. But the commentating, I felt like it was sometimes very fake. Like, there were certain times when you should talk. There's certain times when you shouldn't talk. And then sometimes I was told, you can't be too vague, like, or don't say something if like it's too obvious, and I'm thinking to myself like, this is just so not what I expected. Like, I thought it was watching a match and just saying what you see, saying what you think, but I feel like there's a lot more to it. I mean, it's definitely like a skill to be a very good commentator, but it also is, you have to almost fake it a lot of the time. You have to fake excitement from something or enthusiasm and things like that. And I'm just honestly not very good at that. I've been a very like straightforward person. I'm not really good at that. So I think it definitely shown in my interviews that it was more comfortable and like it was natural and my personality came through instead of the commentating. I did get some good feedback on it, but I honestly, like, the makeup and the hair every day, like, it just also like wasn't me. Like, I felt like I like being on court. I like, working hard and sweating and all that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of synonymous with, how you played. And so being that authentic and that real person and just kind of having that carry over into that next career move that you would take. And so then Melanie too, like you said, relating to people and interviewing people, that was something that you really loved. And so it makes sense then that a natural step would be coaching because it's a similar thing in relating to people, talking to people, having those authentic, real relationships. And so through the course of that year and kind of discovering what you wanted to do next, what was it about coaching, or was there one specific thing about coaching that really kind of sparked that light for you and made you decide last year that you wanted to go at it full time?
Well, the place that I was coaching at, actually, they had wanted me to make a decision being full-time because I'd just been part-time with them for a while. And I totally understood, that they needed me to make that decision. And I think for me also, I always had done one thing. Playing tennis and trying to be a pro tennis player was my goal. And then all of a sudden, that first year after retiring, I was doing so many different things that I didn't even, it was very hard to get really good at one thing because of just kind of being all over the place. And I should have known that because obviously I'd had this one goal, right, my whole life. So
Right.
I felt like for me, it was important to kind of have that one goal again because that's something that I've been used to and I've done well with in the past. So I really wanted to decide on one thing, and that's why I decided, okay, I need to choose for myself especially, and then I can really give my full attention and dedication to coaching. And I've realized, with doing I've been doing a lot of stuff with USTA, a lot of USTA camps and clinics and team events, and I really love it. I mean, I just really, especially coaching, in Atlanta too, but just with doing these different things all in coaching, I feel like it's making me a better coach, and being around some great coaches that have so much experience, I feel like I'm learning everything I go to, and it's just been really, really great experience the past year and a half now, I guess.
Yeah, and I really like that, putting it in that perspective. You were so gung-ho on this one ultimate goal your whole life. And so going into that next year of transition and trying to figure out what to do next, trying all these disparate things, and then kind of finding that common thread and realizing, okay, I want to give all my time, focus all my energy on this one goal, becoming the best coach I can be. And so then kind of, I like that, having that one focused goal that you're at. And so, Melanie, are you coaching? Is it at a school? Is it for a program? Where are you a coach at?
Well, right now, I actually had resigned from my job at, it was called Windward Lake Hub in Alpharetta.
Okay.
And then, of course, this whole coronavirus thing happened.
Right.
So, but yes, I'm actually going to be looking to start my own academy in Atlanta.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yes. So it's just it's still in the works a little bit, and this has just slowed things down a little bit just with the coronavirus, but that is definitely happening as soon as things settle down and hopefully we get back to somewhat normal. That will start to move forward. So I'm really excited about it. And we're hoping definitely by the fall, August, if things get better.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I love that. I mean, going all in and then deciding, starting your own tennis academy. And so, did you always have kind of this, I mean, I guess, playing tennis, being an athlete, it kind of lends itself to having that entrepreneurial mindset, right? So you said you always had to be self-motivated, self-focused, self-driven. So did you anticipate at any point in your journey that you might do this one day, that you might venture out on your own, open your own tennis academy or open your own business?
Yes, definitely. Like you said, exactly. I've been really self-employed my whole life, so it's definitely different working at a club or an academy with a bunch of other people. I might have a couple partners involved with me, but it will probably be very small, which is what I want. I mean, my ideal academy would be having, a very small group kind of during the day, a small group after school, and really, really be able to focus most of my attention on those kids because I've noticed that some of these bigger academies, you just have so many. It's all about volume. It's all about revenue instead of really focusing and developing a small group of kids and really making a difference and being able to go tournaments with them and really, doing the schedules and diving deep into their development plan of what exactly they need. And so I feel like that's where I will thrive also. I don't like working with a ton of kids if I feel like I can't give my full attention to especially the ones that really, really want it and want to go far, and I see some of myself in them. So that's kind of the goal for the new academy.
Yeah, I love that. So you have a really focused vision. You know exactly what you want to do, who you want to cater to, and who you want to help. And so, Melanie, I know you said you're looking trajectory, obviously, if everything goes well and with the coronavirus going on, hopefully looking towards August and opening up. Is there, is it going to be located in Marietta still, or do you have a location in mind? Is it going to be a physical location? Is it going to be virtual? What are, the components of this academy?
Yes. Right now, I can say that it's going to be in Atlanta.
Okay.
It's going to be in a very good location. The facilities are awesome, and it'll be. I think it's going to be very cool. I have high hopes for it, so I think it'll be really great.
Absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And yeah, definitely let us know when it's up and running. Can promote it on Keep Moving Forward and come take a look. But that's great. And I love, Melanie, that you had this incredible journey, this really hard set goal at 16, achieved it, went after it, and then continuing to achieve all these goals for yourself, now looking to open your own business and knowing that you're going to achieve everything that you set your mind to and looking forward. I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
For me, I think it would be my fight and just work ethic out there. I mean, I know that's what a lot of people saw me and remember me from that US Open that I got to the quarterfinals, was just the fight that I had, and obviously I wrote "Believe" on my shoes, so it was really kind of that word stuck with me. People remember me from that, just the belief I had in myself. So I think that would probably be it for me, the fight and the belief I had.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.